Oh, come behold the works of God, the nations at his feet.
Welcome to Calvary Chapel Corinth with Senior Pastor Charlie Villard. Our desire is to comfort those in any affliction with the comfort by which we ourselves have been comforted by God. We are blessed to have you join us today as we dig into God's Word, chapter by chapter, verse by verse.
I walk by faith in God.
Psalm 35. So we finished up Psalm 34, and over the last couple of weeks, instead of just going through Psalm 34 and moving on, we went back, and we started in the beginning of David's life. And it was really fitting for Psalm 34. It took us through like 4 chapters, took a couple weeks to read. I get it was probably a lot of Bible to read through, but as I started Psalm 35, I was like, kind of enjoyed that. Kind of enjoyed going back and digging in David's life, leading up to where that psalm would have taken place. And so as I started to read this one, I'm like, I wonder if we can do it. And we can. We can continue on from where we were, which we'll do, for a few more chapters to lead up to just like one line in this psalm. It's not directly attributed to where we're going to end in 1 Samuel, but most scholars believe this psalm would have been written around the time, likely around the time of where we'll get to in the first psalm. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's kind of neat going through David's life. So in the essence of time, this is long. All right, I'm just going to read sort of quickly through this, not too, because it's not good. We're going to come back and we're going to chew up Psalm 35 when we finish in 1 Samuel. So Psalm 35, a Psalm of David, verse 1. Plead my cause, O Lord, with those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take hold of shield and buckler and stand up for my help, and also draw out the spear and stop those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. Let those be turned back and brought to confusion who plot my hurt. Let them be like chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord pursue them. For without cause they have hidden their net for me in a pit, which they have dug without cause for my life. Let destruction come upon them unexpectedly, and let his net that he has hidden catch himself. Into that very destruction let him fall. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord. It shall rejoice in his salvation, and all my bones shall say, Lord, who is like you, delivering the poor from him who is too strong for him? Yes, the poor and the needy from him who plunders him. Fierce witnesses rise up. They ask me things that I do not know. They reward me evil for good to the sorrows of my soul. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled myself with fasting, and my prayer would return to my own heart. I paced about as though he were my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily as the one who mourns for his mother. But in my adversity they rejoiced and gathered together. Attackers gathered against me, and I did not know it. They tore at me and did not cease. With ungodly mockers at feasts, they gnashed at me with their teeth. Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue me from their destructions, my precious life from the lions. I will give you thanks in great assembly. I will praise you among many people. Let them not rejoice over me who are wrongfully my enemies, nor let them wink with the eye who hate me without cause. For they do not seek peace, but they devise deceitful matters against the quiet ones in the land. They also opened their mouth wide against me and said, Aha, our eyes have seen it. This you have seen, O Lord. Do not keep silence. O Lord, do not be far from me. Stir up yourself and awake to my vindication. To my cause, my God and my Lord. Vindicate me, O Lord, according to your righteousness, and let them not rejoice over me. Let them not say in their hearts, so we have it. Let them not say, we have swallowed him up. Let them be ashamed and brought to mutual confusion who rejoice at my hurt. Let them be clothed with shame and dishonor who exalt themselves against me. Let them shout for joy and be glad who favor my righteous cause. Let them say continually, let the Lord be magnified, who has pleasure in the prosperity of his servant. My tongue shall speak of your righteousness and of your praise all the day long. Man, that is That's long, right? And that's one of like 7 of these types of vindicative, vindicative, is that a word? Vindication type Psalms. While we're talking here, flip to 1 Samuel chapter, where did we finish up? 22. It's the one of like 7 of these kind of vindication prayers. And as I think through it and I read, the idea behind some of these Psalms is really, much like music. You hear a song on the radio, right? And the writer of the song had something in mind when they wrote it. You don't really know, right? You might be able to assume, or a relative assumption to like, well, okay, he's obviously struggling with something. You don't know what, you don't know where it's come from. And honestly, there's times if you actually talk to the writer and heard what they were going through, you might be really surprised it's not what you think. We met a band, Red. They've been a heavy metal band. I've been listening to them for years. We got a chance to see them in concert, and Sheena got me like tickets to see them backstage, and we got to hang out with them. And years later, we would do a similar thing where I would win tickets to go hang out with them. And they're a great group of guys, and you get to ask them whatever questions you want. And there was one thing was like, hey, I don't know, this has stuck with me, but what does this song really mean? I know what I think it means to me. And he goes, you sure you really want to know? And I'm like, no, I definitely do. And he's like, because sometimes it's different than what you think. And I was like, no, I really want to know. And he's like, it's about all of the hurt that the church has caused in my life, right? This religious type thing. And I'm like, man. And I can't listen to the song the same anymore. It doesn't mean the same thing to me. Now I think about him and him pouring out those lyrics going, wow, he really was hurt. And obviously I don't want anyone to ever leave and be hurt by the church like that. But it changed the way that I looked at the scope of it. So in these, I can apply a lot of these things to my life. There's not much in this one that I really can. I have never been so righteous that I can go to God and say, plead my cause, strike down my enemy, because I can go, wow, I was wrong in this one small part, but don't forget they were wrong in this whole other part, and that's what you should focus on, right? David was righteous. He had no cause, Saul had no cause to be pursuing David this way other than his own jealousy and his own unrighteousness. So it's hard in application on that one to really go, okay, where can I apply it? There are certainly lines that I could say, yeah, that one applies. Like, I was wronged by this person. But the whole, this psalm as a whole shows the heart of David, right? And asking God to do that. And it's God's good pleasure to put it in the Word and for us to be able to read it. So it makes sense to go back and continue reading in 1 Samuel so that we can get to the, kind of the point where he was, where we believe he might have been during this one. So following up on the last couple of weeks, we've moved through David's life and God's choosing him as king, right? Even as a youngster, right? It was an insult when they said it to him, but God said, that's my king. And then we have David go and defeat Goliath, and then win the praise of the people and of Saul, the king, who's going to be removed as king. And we also, we looked at this relationship he's built with Jonathan, the son of Saul, and this best friendship to the point where Jonathan is divided between his father and his evil against David and his love for David. And honestly, they made a pact between themselves and the Lord, right? That Jonathan would let him know. And it gets to the point where Saul has just gone nuts and he's pursuing David and David's on the run. And then we sort of ended last week where he finds himself in Gath, right, with the Philistines after he's slew Goliath and cut off his head, and he's in the middle of him and he realizes he's in trouble and he just starts acting nuts. Like, I've lost my mind totally. I'm acting crazy, like worse than some of the craziest stuff we've probably seen on TV. But what it does is it makes the Philistine leader go, get him out of here. This guy's nuts. I don't care about him, right? And David flees to a cave. And so we're going to pick up sort of at the end of that. But this saying that really drives Saul nuts, which is Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. It sets Saul off every time it's said. And you think back, like, there's something that somebody says and you hear it and it just instantly makes you mad, right? And that's Saul's own struggles with that. Every time he hears that, it kind of maddens him. And so as we end in 22, We finished up 21. We finished up that. We went through Psalm 34, and we're kind of back here now at verse 1 of chapter 22. So David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them. And there were about 400 men with him. Sheena, could you grab me a water, please? I was going to just, is it, oh, it'll work. Thank you. I'll take it. So today we have a military, right? And people go sign up and they pledge their life for a period of time. And it's one of the greatest causes that you can give your life to apart from Christ in this country, I think. First responder, firemen, police, ambulance and things. But military is something different because they've pledged their lives and really their families' lives to an extent, right? And kids and things like that to protect this country and to do what they've been asked. And they get asked at times to do things that they might not truly believe in. And that's a difficult thing because they're to take orders, not to argue and not to fight. But they sign up with this willingness and desire to go serve their country. And a lot of times, at least in my experience, people that I know, right, they go because they're discontent with what's happening, right? There are some thrill seekers that want to go to war, right? And there's always a mass of people that sign up around the time of war because they want to go fight. And I get that. Like if I wasn't as chubby and big-headed and stupid, I'd go fight, right? I'd go to battle for my country. I don't want to just go kill people, but I want to protect it. And in a way, my job has become protector of a group of people, right, as a shepherd. So it's not the same, but similar. I look over your spiritual lives. But I would go because I was discontent with something, right? I would go because I want to plead my cause. There's nothing better than to have a mission when you go do that. Right? Some people sign up for the military because they're going to end up in jail if they don't. I'm not saying it's a bad cause, right? That's necessary. But they may not be fully in it with a real true mission emotionally attached to that, to go fight for the nation. They're going, you know what? I'm going to find myself in trouble. My battery's going to die. Again, perfectionism. Like I have a battery charger, but I never bring it in, and I never plug it in. It's whatever. So here what we see is David, he departs and he goes to a cave. And when his family finds out, they go to him, right? They're like, hey, we're gonna go see you. We know you're in trouble. It says that he escaped to this cave, that when his brothers, who were what? They were soldiers for Saul. We just had this conversation back a couple of weeks ago where his brothers were facing up against Goliath, right? And they didn't even go out. And they were mad that David was there. Like, Pipsqueak, what are you doing here? Like, get out of here. You're not strong enough. But now his brother, his father's house have heard that he's in this cave and he's on the run, and they go. And it says they went down there to him, and everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who had discontentment. This is problems with Saul and his reign, right? They may owe Saul, and they're running for their lives, so they're going to go, hey, I'm going to go connect up with this guy. And then you have people that were in distress. They might have, the king didn't hear their needs, and they're like, look, I'm going to go to somebody who's understands me. I'm going to go fellowship with him. I'm going to go to this cave. And those who are discontented, right? So he's amassed an army. But not just some people that go, well, I like David well enough, so I'll go hang out with him in a cave. These people were willing to leave their lives to go serve him and his cause, knowing that he's righteous. So he became captain over them. This is not new to David, right? David was a captain over Saul's army. But I think this is a different group, right? These mighty men, they're different. They're pledging their lives to him, not to the kingdom, but to David and his cause. And everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. This is the story of David's life and the amount of work these 400 men can do. 10,000 people in an army couldn't match these guys. These guys will ultimately become like special forces, right? Like Navy SEALs, these specialty people. And some of that really, or I would say a majority of it, is their heart for David and their heart for freedom and to not be under tyranny. And then in verse 3, David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother come here with you, till I know what God will do for me." So he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. It's cool. It's not a cave. It's a stronghold, right? They've made it into this base, a fortress, this place that they can dwell, that they can see the enemy coming. But David's heart in this, right? Hey, please, take my mom and my dad. They can't live in a cave. They're not built for this. Right? He still has love for them, wants them to be protected and taken care of. And in 5, it says, "Now the prophet Gad said to David, 'Do not stay in the stronghold. Depart and go to the land of Judah.' So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth." And 6, when Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered, now Saul was staying in Gibeah, under the tamarisk tree in Ramah, with his spear in his hand and all his servants standing about him. So Saul catches wind of this, right? He's like, oh, they're in a cave. We're pursuing him. But it says he has a spear in his hand, right? He's not relaxed. He's still in the same mode. He is ready to kill David and kill everyone that stands in the way. And he says to his servants who stood about him, "Hear now, you Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds?" So what's he saying to him? Hey, you think you're going to be a leader of these things? You think you're going to get all kinds of stuff? He's trying to motivate them. Like, I'm the king. I can give you whatever. Come now with me. Think about who you would be standing against if you just decide to stand against me. All of you, in 8, have conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there is not one of you who is sorry for me or reveals to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as it is this day. He's like, all you people, seriously, you didn't tell me that my son was against me, that he's made a deal with David, my own family? Like, what is happening here? How have you not told me this? In 9, it says, "Then answered Doeg the Edomite." So we ran into him a little while ago, right? Back the first 2 weeks ago when we started reading. He is the leader of what would have been Esau's descendants, the Edomites, the line of Esau and Jacob. Well, the brothers Esau and Jacob, the line of Esau. He says to him, who set over the servants of Saul, and he says, "I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, and Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath of the Philistine." So he says, hey, I saw that guy. He tells him like half of the story, right? Not that, he's running from you, and he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, no, I ran into that guy. Yeah, he has the sword of Goliath, right? What's that say to Saul? He's ready to fight. David took that in defense. He didn't take that to go attack Saul. He took it as a defensive weapon. It's an interesting, correlation between that and the Word of God. It's referenced as the sword and the spiritual armor. Right? It's both defensive and offensive. And our armor is a defensive mechanism. Our shield's a defensive mechanism. And the Word can be used as both offensive and defensive. Much like Peter, though, if we start swinging it as an offensive weapon, we may cut the ear off of somebody and them not ever understand what was really going on. We should use it as a defensive weapon, this Word, to battle off the enemy, the real enemy. But we should be careful when we start swinging it around, right? Is the person ready to hear the truth? Can we work this in where we don't cut them so bad that we've injured them, like misusing the Word? So we have to understand it, and we have to use it to cut through lies and to open up a person. Right? That's what a sword ultimately does, is you tend to open them up so their guts bleed out and then they can't do anything. So he has this sword, but he's using it in a defensive position. But Doeg doesn't tell him that. He just says he's got it. He has provisions. It's like, oh, he's ready for battle. We should go fight. It says 11, "So the king sent a call to Ahimelech the priest and the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests who were in Nob. And they all came to the king, and Saul said, 'Hear now, son of Ahitub.' He answered, 'Here I am, my lord.' And Saul said, 'Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, and that given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait as it is this day?'" Is that what David's doing? Is he making a trap? The David we hear in Psalm 35 is not making a trap for his enemy. He's trying to survive, right? And there's this notion And Saul repeats it again. Like, why have you conspired against me? He's mentally not really there, right? He sees everyone as his enemy. We all know someone in our lives like that, right? Where everything is someone against them, right? They're never taking responsibility for the things they did. They're not being accountable, not going like, hey, look, I probably wasn't the greatest friend. I said some things, and I can probably see why they'd be upset, right? They just go, nope, they're all wrong. They're all wrong. Everything they do. Every time they go outside, they have a dirty look on their face. It's aimed at me. Really? I mean, maybe, but do you know that? You don't, right? So Saul is convinced. He's convinced by this. So Ahimelech, in verse 14, he says, he answered the king and said, and among all your servants is as faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, who goes at your bidding, and he is honorable in your house. Did I not then begin to inquire of God for him? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to any of the house of my father. For your servant knew nothing of all of this, little or much. Finally, right? Finally somebody says, Saul, you're crazy. He's as loyal as anyone. He is your son-in-law. You're not looking at this clearly. Why wouldn't I inquire of him, to the Lord for him? Because he doesn't know what's going on. He knows nothing. He doesn't understand what's happening. In 16, and the king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all of your father's house. And the king said to the guards who stood about him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David. And because they knew when he fled and did not tell it to me. But the servant of the king would not lift servants of the king would not lift their hands to strike the priests of the Lord. Right? They know what's wrong. This is one of those moments in a mission, right, when you serve, where you've been told to do something. You have an order. I don't know. I've not experienced that, but I assume there's an aspect to this. You can correct me. If anybody that's been in the military can correct me. There's an aspect of part of your training to break your will, right? To do the will of what you're told to do, right? Do the will of others. That's what boot camp is all about, right? Breaking them down, building them up, removing fear, removing things that stand in your way. Because eventually you're going to get an order to do something and you have to do it. Whether you really agree or not, right? I don't know what that's like. I can't imagine struggling with morality in certain situations. I know there's no doubt evil people that will do evil things in the military. And there are people that will struggle going, I don't want to do this. I've met many of them that are older men going, I didn't want to go to Vietnam. I didn't want to do the things that I did. I tried to stop people from doing bad things. But there's a certain place when you're in war, it's not really about what you're feeling. It's about serving the orders and serving the mission. They're struggling at this point, right? They're going, this guy's innocent, right? I think it's wrong. So these servants of the king have obviously thought about this like, man, this guy's probably mad. There's going to come a time he's going to ask us to do something, and we're not going to want to do it. Here they are standing, and he's given them an order. Kill the priests. They're in on it with David too. They're trapped into this whole thing. Take care of them. And they wouldn't. And in 18 it says, the king said to Doeg, you turn and kill the priests. I love how Doeg looks sort of like dog, because to me it's what he is, right? He's a dog of the king. He's been trained and sent, and you go sick him, he runs and he takes him regardless of what it is, right? His loyalty is to him, but he's probably making something out of this. So Doeg says, okay. Doeg the Edomite turned, and he struck the priests and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. Okay. 85 men didn't stand in a line and allow him to kill them. I would run if someone's running at me with a sword. So Doeg spends the day hunting these people down and killing them. Innocent men, right? Innocent men that were petitioning it. They stood up for what was good and what was right. Doeg's like an assassin, but like assassins are normally like quiet, I guess, I mean, they kind of do things quietly. Like I can imagine he's just running around slaughtering these people. Yeah, right, Rambo, right. What's great about Rambo is like you want that to occur at the end of the movie. For the last 47 minutes, it's just blood and guts and shooting and getting revenge on the enemy, right? Remember, always had a cause. Doeg doesn't. He doesn't care about David, right? He's making money. He's probably getting paid for this. He's going to get land. He's serving the king. Also, Nob, the city of the priest, he struck with the edge of the sword both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen and donkeys and sheep with the edge of the sword. This guy's a monster. He's not killing at this point now likely for money, it's pleasure. I'm going to take out everybody that I can. Nursing infants, killing babies, that's something different, right? You ever watch Star Wars? Anybody? I love Star Wars. There's only 3 Star Wars movies, by the way, just so everybody's aware. It's the ones with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. The other ones are made up stories that are really terrible. Except for the moment. Here's the thing. I'm 47 years old. 1977 is the year I was born. Star Wars came out. I've seen The Empire Strikes Back in the movies. I Return of the Jedi. Like, I love the Star Wars series. I don't get my theology from Star Wars. It's not a religious thing. It's entertainment. Just before I go into this story, it's entertainment. Who is the coolest and baddest bad guy in the galaxy? Darth Vader. Who's the next coolest guy and baddest in the galaxy? Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Yoda? Man, Yoda's like Gandhi. He never killed anyone. No, Boba Fett. Boba Fett's the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy. Right? He does the bidding of Darth Vader. Why? Because of money. So there's this notion, though, as we look at the story of it, what I love about Star Wars, and again, in case Ken is watching this, I don't get my theology from Star Wars. He hates Star Wars. I love a redemption story. When all seems lost and someone can be redeemed and turn around and do what's right. Who brought balance to the Force in the entire Star Wars series? Because there's only 3 movies. It is not Rey. She did not do anything. She is not part of the story. Who brought balance to the Force? Most people will say Luke. Wrong. Darth Vader. Actually, Anakin. Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one, right? And he ultimately brought balance to the Force at the end of that movie. It wasn't Luke. It was his love for his son that caused him to do what was right. I have all kinds of cool Darth Vader things. Darth Vader figurines and Darth Vader cookie jars, right? And my office is filled with that stuff. I never put it on videos because everyone would be like, oh my gosh, that guy's crazy. I like to collect things, but I'm not like the, we were talking about this Thursday night, like I go and I collect very fancy things and I leave them in boxes. I like to play with the toys. So like I get one and they're like, oh, that's a classic Darth Vader right there. And I'm like, rip the package open. They're in horror and I'm like, phew, phew, putting the lightsaber in his hand and I'm setting them up on my desk and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. He's like, you just paid like $20. And I'm like, I don't, whatever, right? Well, it could be worth $5,000. It doesn't matter to me. It's not worth anything. It's just a toy. Darth Vader is a psychopathic, psychotic killer. He is not the hero that everybody makes him out to be, right? If you look at the story, he hunted down. Between the time he became Darth Vader and the opening of the movie we first see, he has been hunting people down and killing them all across the galaxy. Every Jedi has been wiped out. We see him as this like cool hero and he's got an awesome mask, but our picture really isn't right of who he is. And the one sort of cool thing about one of the movies that they did in the prequels, it's not cool, that's the wrong word to use. They show him go in to the Jedi Temple and you assume, based on the door closing, he slaughters a bunch of kids. That's the Darth Vader that we should see when we watch the movies. He was willing to kill little children. He didn't care. His orders were to kill all of the Jedi from his leader, and he went and he did it. I can't imagine a life that Darth Vader would have lived, a redeemed guy, what pain he would have gone through, all of the things that I have done to people. Right? He dies at the end of the movie. He becomes one with the Force and moves on. Happy ending. That's awesome. But what about all the kids that got killed, right? Doeg is like Darth Vader, really. Right? We could be like, oh man, Doeg's cool. He probably got an awesome sword. He's slaughtering kids at the name of the king, right? Because his cause is a lie. Boba Fett, right? He's the same way. He's like, hey, you pay me and I'll go do whatever. He's like, well, go kill these guys, right? Luke Skywalker, he hates people. Okay, I'll go kill him. I'll go get Han Solo. He owes somebody money. They're doing the bidding of people, trusting, maybe not trusting, but like killing their conscience. Doeg, this dude's got no conscience. You kill men that will fight is one thing. You go in and start slaughtering women and children and babies and then animals, totally different. Totally different. Sorry for that rabbit trail. Had to connect up Doeg. This is a bad dude, right? And now Doeg, we know, will do anything for the king. He has proved it. In verse 20, now one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the Lord's priest. So David said to Abiathar, I knew that day when Doeg the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul. He's like, I knew it. I knew it. I was standing right there with him. I knew he was going to tell Saul. I have caused the death of all of the persons of your father's house. David's grief, right? That I did this. I came to you. I asked for things. He even lied. Remember that day? He lied. Hey, you guys have any bread? All the men that are with me right now, they're hungry. He's like, you guys been sleeping with any ladies? Because can't really give you this holy bread. And he's like, oh, no, we haven't. No one's had ladies in days. He had no people at this point at all. It was just him. He was lying. So he goes out of fear, not trusting the Lord. He lies, and now we're seeing some of this fallout from this. He says, I have caused the death of all the persons. Remember that. Highlight that line in relation to Psalm 35. Stay with me. Do not fear. For he who seeks my life seeks your life, but with me you shall be safe. And he says, don't leave. Stay with me. I'll protect you. This was my fault. He now seeks you because you've gotten away. He seeks me. Stay. Chapter 23, verse 1. Then they told David, saying, look, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah. I looked it up. It's Keilah. And they are robbing the threshing floors. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, Lord, shall I go and attack these Philistines? And the Lord said to David, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said to him, look, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord once again. See, David's learned. He's not using his own logic, right? His own sense. He's not saying like, I feel like killing somebody today, so let's just go over there, right? He's like, hey, let's go, let's protect. Let me go to the Lord. Lord, what do you want me to do? And he says, go. So he goes to the men and they're afraid. If we look way back at the life of Moses, what was Moses' first response to the Lord when he's like, you're going to go and you're going to lead the people? No, that's not me. Right, and he stutters. He has a speech impediment. He's like, no, that's not, no. I can't. You gotta send somebody else. And the Lord's like, no, I'm going to send you. He's like, oh, but you got to have someone to speak for me. And he's like, well, fine, send your brother Aaron. It's fine, right? But he's fearing. He's not truly trusting in the Lord. The Lord's merciful and graceful, sends Aaron. So he goes back to inquire of the Lord again. The Lord answered him and he says, arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into your hand. Right, that's what he needs. He's checked in with the Lord again and the Lord says, go. I have this. Highlight that. How many times in your life will you inquire of the Lord? He'll tell you, go. I have this. I got it. Go. And David and his men went to Keilah, and they fought the Philistines, and he struck them with a mighty blow and took away their livestock. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. What happened here? A couple things. One, David inquired with the Lord. He's learned from his mistakes. He doesn't just lie to the men. He doesn't try to trick them. He doesn't say, Saul hates me and he hates you too and he's going to come kill you. He uses the Lord as motivation. That's the true place we should be looking. Two, he's built rapport now with his people. He's inquired of the Lord twice. They've told him to go. They go, they fight. The trust in the Lord and trust in David grows because they're successful. And three, David's relationship with the Lord grows out of this one too. How many times are we afraid to do something, and then we inquire of the Lord, he says, do this, I got this, and we do it, and then we go, man, you did do it. I trust you more, Lord. If we're the people that are being tossed around in every single storm, every single time, we're not really trusting the Lord, right? We're not inquiring of him and doing as he says. We're probably running in fear, shame and pain and hurt, and we never really grow in our relationship. So a lot happens in this. It's one line. David saved the inhabitants, but who did really? God, right? Because God said, go, save them. In chapter 23, verse 6, if I haven't lost you. Now it happened when Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, fled to David at Keilah, he went down with an ephod in his hand. And Saul was told that David had gone to Keilah. So Saul said, God has delivered him into my hand, for he has shut himself in by entering a town that has gates and bars. And Saul called all the people together for war to go down to Keilah and besiege David and his men. David knew that Saul plotted evil against him. He said to Abiathar the priest, bring the ephod here. And then David said, O Lord God of Israel. He starts it with respect and honor. O Lord God of Israel. Your servant has certainly heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah to destroy the city for my sake. Do you understand what happens when he says your servant? He's referencing himself, like, I have heard. Just a cool way of referencing that. Your servant has heard. I have heard, Lord. Excuse me. Will the men of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Will Saul come down as your servant has heard? O Lord God of Israel, I pray, tell your servant. And the Lord said, he will come down. And then David said, will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, they will deliver you. In 13, so David and his men, about 600, arose and departed from Keilah and went wherever they could go. Then it was told to Saul that David had escaped from Keilah, so he halted the expedition. So he goes back to the Lord and he says, hey, Lord, I've heard he's coming here. Is he gonna be here, right? David's not caught in, we took over a town, we're awesome, we're super strong, I got this, we can definitely battle Saul. He goes, let me go back, I'm going to inquire of the Lord. Hey, Lord, they're on their way. Can we take these guys? And the Lord goes, no, they're going to deliver you. And you essentially need to move your people. Again, relationship grows, trust, faith, and they run and they escape. And Saul says, I heard that they escaped. All right, let's just not go any further. In 14, and David stayed in strongholds in the wilderness, caves, and remained in the mountains of the wilderness of Ziph. Saul sought him every day, but God did not deliver him into his hand. See this cool part, right? He says, David moved around and God did not deliver David into Saul's hands. Who's in control? Saul, because he's chasing him, or God, because he's the one moving him from place to place, allowing it. We see this pattern with the people of Israel. Right? They don't want a God, they want a man judge, and they get a man judge, and God's like, oh, look, I'll give him to you, but he's going to be good, some are going to be bad, and I'm probably going to be handed into captivity because you're not listening to me. Right? It's God who is orchestrating all of these things, and he's using all of these events. In 17, he says, and he said to him, do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Even my father Saul knows that. So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed in the woods, and Jonathan, I jumped ahead. I'm so sorry. Well, he's in the wilderness. Saul's son is there. He shows up. David's in the woods. So, Jonathan and him connect back up. I missed that verse when I was reading. So Jonathan shows up. He's like, hey, look, I'm with you. I made another covenant with the Lord. I'm following you. Even my father knows that you are king over Israel. It's sort of the first time it's been said, really. It's assumed that Saul's problem with David is he knows God's going to remove him as king, and David's going to be king. It was obvious to him, right, when he had the love of the people. He's controlling the captain, the armies. The people love him. That's what a king should have. It says in 18, so the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed in the woods, and Jonathan went to his own house. Then the Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, is David not hiding with us in strongholds in the woods, in the hill of Hekeliah, which is on the south of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of your own soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hands. And Saul said, blessed are you of the Lord, for you have compassion on me. Please go and find out for sure and see the place where his hideout is, and who has seen him there? For I am told he is very crafty. I love this. David's not crafty. The dude's on the run. He's like, again, this mental picture of like, oh, he's just weasel, right? He's crafty. He's figuring all this stuff out. He's just inquiring of the Lord and moving from place to place. There's no strategy here other than survival, right? They're not making a plan to go kill Saul. Saul somehow still thinks this. So he's like, hey, look, he's crafty. See, therefore, to take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hides and come back to me with certainty. If he doesn't come back, what's that say? That he fell into a trap of some sort, or David got him and killed him. So he's like, hey, go, find out what's lurking, go through the scary stuff. It's like, if you got to go down into the basement, and I don't know if you guys have a basement where you have to go, the light's like on the other side of the basement, so you only have the light of the stairway. They're creaky stairs, they could probably break. Then there's the one stair with the weird nail, like in a horror movie, like if you step down on the nail, it's going to go straight up into the bottom of your foot. And then you're going to like fall, and you're going to be in the dark. And was it Home Alone? The boiler would like come alive and like would eat you. So he's like, hey, go to the basement and get all that stuff. I'm like, why don't you go to the basement? No, I'm telling you, you go to the basement. Oh, I don't want to go to the basement. I could get killed, right? So he's like, hey, go find all the things that are happening and then report back to me all of them. So when I head out there, I know what's going on. So he says, and it shall be, if he is in the land, I will search for him throughout all the clans of Judah. So they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, and in the plain of the south of Jeshimon. When Saul and his men went to seek him, they told David. Therefore he went down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued David in the wilderness of Maon. Man, you could say that 10 more times. Then Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men were on the other side of the mountain. This is cool, right? If you were to step back in the landscape and look at everything, there's like an army on one side of a mountain, right? And David on the other side of the mountain. And they're like just missing each other. I mean, I picture like a cartoon where they're just spinning and running around the mountain now after each other. So David made haste to get away from Saul, for Saul and his men were encircling David and his men to take them. It was a strategy here, right? You can get lost. Another thing you could learn from the Star Wars movies, but one from that was not the Star Wars movie, is when Anakin gets killed, right? Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting, and Anakin's about to make a jump. And Obi-Wan says, don't do this. I have the high ground. You're going to make a mistake. And in his anger and haste, Anakin jumps, gets his legs cut off, and burns in the lava, and says, I hate you. And he's totally stupid because he's a terrible actor. But, you see Obi-Wan going, no, don't do this. I have the upper hand. Please don't make this mistake. David, I can imagine much like that. Like, I don't want this. If David's crafty, why doesn't he use his leverage and kill Saul's army? He does not want to kill him. He wants to move on from this. In 26, then Saul went to one side of the mountain and David on the other side. Made haste for Saul. He was encircling him. 27. But a messenger came to Saul saying, hurry and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Detractor, all of a sudden, right, like, oh, the Philistines are invading our land. Great, what am I going to do? I'm on the heels of David here, whom I want personally, and now I'm a king and I have people that are loyal that I need to take care of. In 28, therefore Saul returned from pursuing David and went against the Philistines, so they called that place the Rock of Escape. Right, I'm sure it's a dig. It's where David escaped from him, and he was so close to him, but had to go back and he had to protect his people and take care of the Philistines. It says in 29 that David went up from there and he dwelt in the strongholds at En-Gedi. Chapter 24. Now it happened when Saul had returned from following the Philistines that it was told to him, saying, take note, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 men from all Israel and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. Man, 3,000 men. This is crazy, right? He's got a massive army. Then Saul, he took 3,000 men, and then he came to the sheepfolds by the road, and where there was a cave, and Saul went in to attend to his needs. This is cool. What do you think he's doing? we might call this taking a potty break, right? Tend to his needs in a cave. He could be number one or number twoing, who knows? I'm going to go with he's number twoing, and because it would leave him there for a certain amount of time. Trying to be, I don't know what the nicest way to say that is. What is it? What's the medical term of it? Evacuating? Is that what they call that? Like, they're like, we go to the vet, they're like, oh, when was the last time your dog evacuated? I'm like, the room? I mean, I just grab a treat and he comes running. I don't know. No, when he went potty, and I'm like, oh, out in your bush? Like, right before we came in here, right? So I'm going with he's there going number two. He's attending to his needs. David and his men were staying in the recesses of this cave. And the men of David said to him, this is the day in which the Lord said to you, behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you. When did the Lord speak this? Scripturally, we don't have this, right? These men are saying to him, this is the day. The Lord's saying, here he is. I delivered him into your hands. You should be careful what people say, right? They've probably been on the run a long time, and they're tired of it. And they're like, hey, this is it. Go take care of it, and we're all done. And David arose. Oh, he says, behold, I will deliver the enemy into you, do me that what seems good to you. And David arose and secretly cut off the corner of Saul's robe. And that's the reason I think he's probably going number two. It does. That would really mean number one, usually, but still, he's sitting there reading a magazine, but he's got his cape out, so he doesn't poop on his cape. So David, he sneaks in, and he cuts off the corner of his robe. This is a big thing, right? Because David could have slit his throat. Could have cut his head straight off while he was going to the bathroom, right? Sent him to heaven in the going to the bathroom posture. I want to make all kinds of jokes now. There's going to be potty jokes, so it's terrible. But it says he cut off his robe, and now it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him because he had cut Saul's robe. He had done something. That robe was placed on him by the Lord. And it troubles David. David, first of all, he didn't want to kill him. But then he cuts the material of the robe that the Lord has given him. He is king. Regardless of whether David's been named king, he is the king of the land. He's trying to respect him. Right? Not only is this, he loves his son to death. Right? For life and death, he loves his son. He's married to Saul's daughter. He served his kingdom. Saul gave him an opportunity to grow as a man. I imagine as he's holding that fabric, looking at it like, this is the king. Right? What does this mean? What have I done? I love that hum of the microphone. The battery's about to quit. I probably should just wrap the teaching right now, and I don't even know if it's working. Someone online's probably like, hey, there's no audio. Now it happened afterward, David's heart troubled him. And he said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. David understands what it's like to be king. Even if he's not king yet, right? He's been anointed and picked by the Lord. You know what? I'm going to wrap there. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's for the week think about that, right? Do we understand God's hierarchy, right? Who God is in God's kingdom? Do we understand that God has placed a government and people and authority, right? That are over us. Whether I like the governor or not, I did like that video. He shut her down so hard in that. Man, it was so awesome. I mean, I'm not a giant fan of Trump. I am a fan of who God puts in for the good of Christians. And if he did that, then awesome. But I'll tell you, man, I wanted to clap and cheer during that statement. Well, by the way, I am the federal government. You know what, look, I'm also heartbroken about that because it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing that two people who have been elected officials have to spar back and forth like that because it kind of makes us look bad, right? That's like whatever Page 6 or TMZ stuff. That's not how we should be, right? That, That's what you do with your brothers and sisters, or brothers more, right? You have a brother and you want to one-up them with some sort of thing. You're like, ooh, burn. It's awesome when you can say something and it just shuts them up, right? When she didn't shut up, which she should have just been quiet, right? And then, but, it shows a lack of respect for the offices, to me. As awesome as it is, because I watched Governor Mills tell us as a church that we couldn't open. All of a sudden, the Constitution didn't matter anymore. And we went, no, we're doing it anyway, right? There are people that want to come. If they want to stay outside, then great, that's okay. But if there are people that want to enter this building because it's their right to, and they want to meet with God and be with God's people, it's their right to do that as well. And she said, no, it is not. Now she wants to stand by the Constitution. It doesn't apply whenever you want it to. God's word doesn't apply when we want it to. You don't go to God's word when someone's wronged you just to point out something and find a passage to point back at them, right? We're supposed to be peacemakers. To be peaceable among people. They're heathens. I have no illusions. But at the same time, it makes me go, I don't want to look like that, right? I don't want us to look like that to other countries. It makes us look weak. And they're like, whoa, look at that, man. Those guys are just arguing. I mean, you see it all the time in other countries. I read their news because I want to see what juicy gossip there is. So David, in this same respect, he's like, look, he brings that back and all the men are probably excited. Did you kill him? Is that red soaked in blood? And it's like, no, it's just a red fabric. I didn't kill him. He finished pooing and went about his way. But David's like, I shouldn't have done that. He is God's appointed king. The Lord anointed him. He touched him and placed him in that spot. For who am I? Who am I to do that? So, are we leaving on some super happy high note? No. I think about it for the week, right? As we think about relationships with people, and, especially as people that God has put in place, right? Kids and parents. Kids. Your parents, God has placed you with them for a reason. Listen to them. Right? They're seeking, hopefully, we're all seeking the Lord, right? You're seeking the Lord about how to raise your children, how to look out for them. And this respect level happens in the home. It should happen in a workplace. It happens in the church. Should happen in the government. It should happen everywhere. We should at least respect the office that somebody stands in, even if we don't respect the person at all. There's a petition going around to sign to impeach the governor. I didn't sign it. I don't think that's the right way to do things. God put her in that office, whether I like her or not. If you are moved to sign it, please sign it. That's up to you. I went to God. Like, Lord, it's a mockery. It's a mockery of you. Like the things the freedom you have given this nation. Lord, vindicate us. I know. There's no way I can read Psalm 35 and be like, as a country, all that applies. We've removed God from the schools. We've removed babies from the womb. We've removed the family from the family. We're removing body parts from children. There's so much wrong in the world. We need to go to God for that. That God would fight this battle. God, come back. Move on the hearts of people that they would go, I am so wrong. I have to turn this back around. Legislature isn't going to clear this up because what's going to happen in 4 years? New president enters, and if it's a Democrat, what are they going to do? Undo everything that's just been being done. None of them are seeking the Lord. I'm convinced of that. Maybe some of them. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying, though? Right? It stinks. And, I laugh at some of that stuff, man. It's Austin Powers didn't prove well. Have you guys ever watched Austin Powers? Governor Mills looks just like Austin Powers. I know the camera's on, but I know the audio's off, so it's not going to be recorded. Right? Again, I'm shaming myself, right? Because I said I shouldn't be that way about it. Inside of me, I want to take digs. We want to jab. I want God to return, and I want God to do what he's supposed to do. And that's what David's going to land on. Like, Lord, you should do this. You made me king. You made him king. You put me wherever you want me, right? We should be pliable enough seeking the Lord to say, hey, you have made a government. You have structured it. Everything happens here by your way. So help me.
Thank you for joining us today. We pray this teaching has been a blessing to you. If you have any questions or would like to request prayer, you can visit us online at www.cccorinth.org. If you're local, come join us for a service at 125 School Road in Charleston, Maine. We want to remind you that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God. Remain armored up, and until next time, grace and peace.